Hello, and welcome back to Lesson 12 in our study of the book of Revelation. Twice already in the Revelation, we've been shown the ultimate downfall of the Roman Empire and the victory of the saints of the Lamb, presented in separate visions revealed to the Apostle John. First was the vision of the radiant woman, the great red dragon, and the two great beasts who are the dragon's earthly agents. That was in chapters 12 to 14. Next, we had the vision of the 7 bowls of wrath poured out upon the earth in chapters 15 and 16. Now, chapters 17 through 20 constitute yet a third vision of the same events. And because it's longer and more complex, we'll dedicate 3 sessions of this study to it. But why do we have 3 apocalyptic accounts of the same events? Well, probably because it was a subject of enormous importance to the churches in Asia. As the Roman persecution became increasingly intense, an understanding of the meaning and the ultimate outcome of their suffering would strengthen the faith and resolve of the saints to persevere. That was the primary reason the revelation was given, so we shouldn't be surprised that this subject accounts for almost half of the contents of the book. Also, 3 is the number associated with God and the divine realm in apocalyptic numerology. 3 apocalyptic accounts of the cataclysmic fall of Rome would emphasize the divine operation of God within the historical events. And the generous use of the literary device of reduplication is an effective means of assuring the truth of the message being communicated and guaranteeing its fulfillment. And a message delivered in triplicate carries the utmost assurance of truth and reliability. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God, the Almighty, who was and who is to come. Chapter 4 and 8. And woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth. Chapter 8, verse 13. So this story, thrice told, is absolute truth. The Asian churches can stake their lives on it. This third vision is presented as an epic drama, divided into 6 acts, and concluding with a fitting epilogue. Act 1 presents us with the depravity and judgment of a great prostitute. In Act 2, we read the obituary and funeral of the Roman Empire. And in Act 3, we see the destruction of municipal Rome, the city of Rome. Act 4, we have the presentation of the bride of the Lamb. And in Act 5, we have the presentation of the warrior king who is the groom. Act 6 shows us the ultimate fate of the great red dragon. And then in the epilogue, we have the final judgment of everything. Now we should beware of weaving the materials of this entire section of chapters 17 to 20 into some kind of fantastic end times program. These visions are designed to leave no doubt about the ultimate triumph of the Lamb and his saints over any and all evil forces that Satan may throw at them. That was their message to the Christians of Asia Minor in about AD 95, But that message still resonates with the church of today, assuring us of the ultimate victory of Christ and his church over the powers of evil in every age. This lesson will cover Act 1 of this drama. Act 1 introduces us to the antagonist of the drama to follow. After the vision of the 7 bowls of wrath is completed, one of the 7 angels who had the bowls directs John's attention to another stage, to see again in greater detail what he had just witnessed in the dramatic fall of the city. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying, "Come here, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who dwell on the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality." And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was clothed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. When I saw her, I wondered greatly. So, as the curtain rises in verse 1, we're prepared for the appearance of a great harlot. She is described as sitting upon many waters. But when she actually appears in verse 3, we see her seated upon a grotesque scarlet beast. Now, rather than a contradiction, this appears to be a movement from a high-level view of the prostitute in verse 1, with no notice of the beast, to a ground-level view in verse 3, where the beast can be seen. The impression we get is that the scarlet beast represents a dominant power over the many waters of the earth, and the great prostitute who rides on its back is the epicenter of that power. The imagery of the many waters here reminds us of the sea from which the great beast emerged in chapter 13. Both passages suggest a powerful and vicious nation that has temporarily risen to the top of the turbulent, troubled mass of humanity. The scarlet beast on which the prostitute is seated is full of blasphemous names, and it has 7 heads and 10 horns. The blasphemous names, the 7 heads, the 10 horns, everything about this beast reminds us again of chapter 13 and the beast from the sea. The scarlet or red color of the beast, on the other hand, calls to mind the great red dragon from chapter 12, the apocalyptic image of Satan. The combination of these now familiar images confirms that it is Satan who controls and empowers this beast upon which the great prostitute sits. The description of this prostitute is the very picture of luxurious splendor, ruthless power, and shameless debauchery. She is dressed in the splendid garments of rulers and adorned with expensive gold and jewelry. In her hand she holds a cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. Verse 2 said that this cup contains the wine of her immorality, by which those who dwell on earth have become drunk. And in verse 6, we're told that the woman herself is drunk all the time with the blood of the saints and martyrs of Jesus. That's the sense of the Greek present participle in this verse here. She's not only just drunk, she is drunk all the time with the blood of the saints and martyrs. The unclean things of her immorality, therefore, are the whole gamut of evil deeds entailed in her personal depravity and her bloody persecution of the church. The prostitute's name is written upon her forehead: Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And this little tidbit of information would not have been surprising to John's readers, because Roman prostitutes typically had their names written in the ornaments that adorn their foreheads. Nevertheless, John says that the name is a mystery. The Greek word here, mysterion, almost certainly should be read as an attribute of the name, as we read it here in the New American Standard and also in the English Standard and the New Revised Standard versions of our Bibles. It is not actually a part of the name itself, even though that's the way it reads in the King James Version and the New International Version. Mystery is not her name. Mystery is the nature of her name. It's a mysterious name. The mystery, as will be revealed presently, which by now should come as no surprise to us, is that this prostitute is actually Rome. This picture of Rome as a wanton prostitute is the antithesis to the picture of the church as the radiant woman in chapter 12, and the beautiful woman who weds the Lamb, as we'll see later in chapter 19. So what we are seeing in this vision is the city of Rome, intoxicated with its immense imperial power over the rest of the earth. The prostitute, sitting on the back of the beast, grows rich and fat as she plies her trade with the kings of the earth. And they, in turn, are mesmerized with her immorality, that is, her idolatry, and especially her emperor worship cult. This disgusting portrayal of the depravity of Rome may be a parody of something else that is easily lost on the modern reader. In ancient Hellenistic literature, there was a distinct genre that was called ekphrasis. It was a style used specifically for the detailed analysis of works of art. And John seems to be mimicking that style in his description of the prostitute and the beast in verses 3 to 6. In fact, these verses may be a parody of an actual ekphrasis of a well-known work of art that would have been familiar to the readers of his time. Although the original work of art on which this description is based is lost, it was probably a marble or bronze relief reproduced in multiple copies. And fortunately for us, a visual representation of it has survived on several ancient coins. The coin pictured here was minted during the reign of Domitian's father, Vespasian. That's his portrait on the obverse side. The reverse side depicts Dea Roma, the goddess of Rome. She is seated on Rome's 7 hills with a dagger resting on her right knee. The river god Tiber reclines at her feet at the right, and Romulus and Remus, the mythical founders of Rome, are at the lower left, being nursed by the legendary she-wolf, in keeping with the Roman legend. The cult of Dea Roma was particularly popular in the province of Asia. In fact, most of the 7 cities addressed by John had active centers dedicated to this female personification of the city of Rome. And it appears that John used this popular artistic representation of the glory of Rome as a means for mocking her and contrasting her with the New Jerusalem. In John's vision, Rome is still seated on 7 hills, but here they are symbolized by the 7 heads of the scarlet beast. And rather than a sword symbolizing imperial power, she's holding the cup filled with her immoralities. But still, as John considers everything he has seen, he is mystified by the appearance and significance of the prostitute. And he says, "When I saw her, I wondered greatly." At this point, the angel who first directed John's attention to the great prostitute proceeds to explain the mystery to him. And the angel said to me, "Why do you wonder? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to destruction. And those who dwell on the earth, whose name has not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will wonder when they see the beast, that he was and is not and will come. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain a little while. The beast which was and is not, is himself also an eighth, and is one of the seven, and he goes to destruction. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. They have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. These will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are the called and chosen and faithful. We notice that even though the prostitute dominates the mystery in verses 1 to 6, she is barely mentioned in the interpretation. In verse 7, the angel says to the mystified John, "Why do you wonder? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns." But it's not until much later in verse 18 that she is ever mentioned again, when she is identified as the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. So the angel's main focus in the explanation of this mystery is not the great prostitute, but the identity of the red beast on which she sits. First, the angel describes the beast enigmatically as an entity who was and is not and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to destruction. A riddle repeated later in the same verse and again in verse 11. This way of describing the beast appears to serve 2 purposes. First, it alludes to the Nero redivivus myth that we talked about before, the superstitious belief that Nero was reborn in the person of Domitian. Second, it recalls the attributes of the true God, who is and was and is to come. And this is to taunt Domitian and his own blasphemous claims of divinity. We discussed the Nero redivivus myth in chapter 13. The tyrannical acts of Nero, and especially his persecution of the church, were limited to the city of Rome itself. When Nero died and his soul was consigned to the abyss, his tyranny effectively died with him. Now, however, with the rise of the Emperor Domitian, the tyranny is about to raise its ugly head again, to come up out of the abyss, so to speak. So much that those who dwell on the earth, whose name has not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will wonder whether Domitian might indeed be Nero, come to life again. But here is the mind which has wisdom. In other words, here's what these signs really mean. In a literary device unique to the book of Revelation, the 7 heads of the beast have 2 distinct meanings. First, they represent the 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and the oldest part of the city of Rome was indeed built on 7 hills. Second, they represent 7 kings, of which 5 have already fallen, 1 currently reigns, and 1 is yet to come. And the beast itself is an 8th king, but belongs to the 7. Now, there have been endless speculations about the identity of these kings, because many interpreters have assumed that it would be possible to identify the precise date of the writing of the book of Revelation if only the correct list of emperors here could be reconstructed. But no matter how the list of historical Roman emperors is juggled, beginning with either Julius Caesar or with Augustus, and then continuing to Domitian, they just don't fit into John's schemata of 7 kings. And this suggests that the number 7 might simply be an apocalyptic representation of the complete number of Roman emperors, however many they may be. And they were typically called kings in the eastern provinces like Asia. Now, the fact that 5 of these kings have already fallen, 1 is currently in power, and only 1 remains, and he will remain only for a little while, might be a comforting hint, kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod to the persecuted churches that the end of their suffering is in sight. By identifying the beast itself as an 8th king who is one of or more probably we should translate that one with, the seven kings, probably means that the beast is the common denominator of the seven. He represents the essence or totality of Roman imperial power. And he too is doomed to destruction, as is seen in verses 8 and 11. The 10 horns represent all the constituent nations or kingdoms in the empire. And they have one purpose, or as the RSV states it, they are of one mind. They are not kings in their own right or by their own power. They receive their authority from the beast for 1 hour, that is, for a limited time. The Herod family in Judea, who ruled only at the pleasure of Augustus Caesar, is one example of this kind of king. And it's significant to notice here that these client kings are not coerced into an alliance with Rome. They join her because they are in full complicity with her, just like the clients of a prostitute. These united forces will war against the Lamb, but he will defeat them because he is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. When we get to chapter 19, in the vision of the victorious Christ, we will read that on his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And Paul, in his first letter to Timothy, charged his young protege to hold fast to the commandments until the appearing of Jesus Christ, he who is the blessed and only sovereign, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. 1 Timothy 6 and verse 15. No matter how many kings or lords or whatever other earthly power we can name should join forces to oppose the Lamb, they are doomed to destruction because he is King and Lord over them all. Those who are allied with the Lamb will share in his victory because they are the called and chosen and faithful. Notice that they are not just called, not merely chosen, but called and chosen and faithful. In his parable of the wedding feast, Jesus warned that many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. The crucial element here, the missing link, if you will, for those who are called but not chosen, is faithfulness, perseverance. Remember the charge to the church in Smyrna in chapter 2. Do not fear what you're about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to cast some of you into prison so that you will be tested and you will have tribulation for 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. It's a charge no less applicable to us than it was to the churches of Asia. In the final verses of the chapter, we're told in more detail just how the Lamb overcomes the great prostitute and the scarlet beast. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these will hate the harlot, and will make her desolate and naked, and will eat her flesh, and burn her up with fire. For God has put it in their hearts to execute his purpose by having a common purpose, and by giving their kingdom to the beast, until the words of God be fulfilled. The woman whom you saw is the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. The first thing we notice here is that our interpretations of the various signs in verses 3 to 6 are confirmed in these verses. But we're surprised to see that now the beast and the kings of the earth who had consorted with the great prostitute have suddenly turned on her and destroyed her. So the angel reveals to John that the time will come when the city of Rome has nothing left to offer the kings of the earth. And when that time comes, their fierce loyalty will turn to bloody insurrection, and they will turn on her and destroy her in a horrific display of wrath. And of course, the destruction of the city means the disintegration of the empire. The angel goes on to state emphatically that none of these events will be the random outcome of the changing tides of human history. It is God who put it in the hearts of the nations to execute his will by finding common cause with the beast and giving their authority to him. But this alliance will last only until the words of God are fulfilled. And at that point, the Roman Empire will die. And so, in Act 1 of this great drama, deliverance from Roman persecution is guaranteed to the 7 churches of Asia. Rome will lose not only the spiritual battle, but the earthly one as well. And here is wisdom. Here is comfort for the suffering churches of Asia in John's time, but also for the besieged and beleaguered church of today. God is in absolute control of human history, and he has a divine eternal purpose that will be fulfilled in it. It remains for us, the called and chosen saints of the Lamb, to persevere and remain faithful until death.